There's a moment in every intimate encounter where time seems to slow, where the noise of the world fades, and only two people exist. It's not about the position, the rhythm, or even the technique. It's about what happens between those moments, the glances, the breath, the unspoken recognition that you are both surrendering to something larger than yourselves. When you do this during her favorite position, you aren't just touching her body, you're reaching her memory, her senses, her longing to be known. The power of emotional presence during physical intimacy lies in the ability to create a deep and unspoken connection that transcends the act itself. Many people enter moments of intimacy with their minds distracted, their emotions disconnected, or their focus placed entirely on performance or pleasure. Yet true intimacy, the kind that lingers in memory long after the physical touch has ended, is built upon being emotionally present. Emotional presence means fully engaging with your partner's energy, body, and emotions in real time. It's the awareness that intimacy is not just a physical experience but a shared emotional landscape, one where both partners are attuned to each other's needs and responses without judgment or pressure. When a person feels that their partner is not just touching them but feeling them, it transforms the experience from mechanical to meaningful. Being emotionally present requires vulnerability and attentiveness. It asks you to listen not just with your ears but with your entire being. You observe the subtle changes in her breathing, the shifts in her tone, the tremor in her movement, and you respond to those cues with empathy and curiosity. This responsiveness creates safety, and safety is the foundation of passion. When she senses that you are there with her, not just physically but emotionally invested, her body relaxes, her mind opens, and her heart engages. This is where connection deepens because she feels seen, valued, and respected in her vulnerability. Emotional presence also means letting go of self-consciousness. Instead of thinking about how you look, what you're doing, or whether you're doing it right, you shift your focus outward to her experience, her reactions, her pleasure. This shift from ego to empathy changes everything. It removes performance anxiety and replaces it with authenticity. You become a participant in the moment, not an observer trying to control it. And when two people exist in that space of mutual presence, intimacy becomes a dialogue, not a routine. Moreover, emotional presence allows for a deeper emotional exchange. It's in those quiet seconds where you lock eyes, share a smile, or breathe together that something profound happens, the merging of emotion and sensation. It's not about intensity but about depth, not about lasting longer but about feeling more. Every gesture, every whisper becomes a language of care and desire. When you embody that kind of presence, she feels it in her soul. The body may forget the sequence, but the heart never forgets the feeling of being met fully, of being held in a space where connection is genuine and love is expressed not through words, but through pure, conscious awareness. Understanding the difference between performance and connection is what separates an encounter that fades from one that lingers in memory. Many people approach intimacy as though it is something to accomplish, a stage on which they must prove their desirability, skill, or control. In doing so, they fall into the trap of performance, focusing on technique, rhythm, or external validation rather than emotional exchange. Performance thrives on the idea of doing, connection thrives on the art of being. When you perform, you seek approval or results. When you connect, you seek understanding and presence. This distinction might seem subtle, but it changes the entire emotional texture of intimacy. Performance keeps you in your head, constantly evaluating and analyzing, while connection brings you into your body, into your senses, into the shared now. When a person is performing, their attention is divided. They might be thinking about how they appear, whether they are satisfying their partner, or whether they measure up to an imagined ideal. In that mental space, intimacy becomes something to manage rather than something to feel. It's often driven by fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of losing control. Connection, however, comes from courage, the courage to be authentic, to reveal yourself as you are, and to meet your partner with genuine curiosity rather than pretense. When you stop performing, you make space for something real to emerge. You stop trying to impress and start trying to understand. You stop aiming to achieve pleasure and start aiming to share it. Connection happens when both partners are emotionally attuned to each other. It's when touch becomes communication, when silence becomes safe, when pleasure is not taken but shared. It's a dynamic where both feel seen and felt. The more you try to perform, the more distance you create. The more you connect, the more intimacy expands. True connection doesn't come from perfect moves or flawless timing, it comes from honesty and awareness. It's about slowing down enough to notice what's unfolding between you and allowing that moment to guide you. The difference between performance and connection is also the difference between temporary excitement and lasting memory. A performance may impress someone for a night, but connection touches something deeper. It reaches into the part of a person that longs to be known, not just desired. When she feels that your intention is to connect rather than to perform, she experiences not just physical pleasure but emotional recognition. That is what she remembers, the feeling that in your presence, she didn't need to be anyone else, and neither did you. The role of curiosity and responsiveness in deepening desire is rooted in the understanding that true intimacy is an ever-evolving dance, not a fixed routine. Desire thrives not in certainty but in discovery, and curiosity is what keeps that discovery alive. When you approach intimacy with genuine curiosity, you replace assumption with exploration. You stop acting from what you think you already know and start engaging with what you can still learn about your partner's body, emotions, and boundaries. Curiosity transforms an intimate encounter into a living conversation, one where you are both participants in a mutual unfolding rather than actors following a script. It invites playfulness, attentiveness, and openness, creating an energy that feels spontaneous and alive. Responsiveness, on the other hand, is how that curiosity comes to life. It's the ability to notice and adapt, to read the subtle cues your partner gives, to listen not only to words but to the shifts in breath, expression, and touch. When you respond in alignment with what you sense, you create trust. Trust is what allows desire to deepen because it tells your partner that they can surrender to the moment without fear of being unseen or misunderstood. Being responsive doesn't mean controlling the encounter, it means co-creating it. It's the dance between leading and following, giving and receiving, exploring and allowing. Curiosity and responsiveness together build emotional intelligence within intimacy. They require presence, patience, and humility. They remind you that desire is not a fixed state, it changes, evolves, and expands when it is nourished. When you remain curious, you prevent intimacy from becoming predictable. You stay fascinated, not by the act itself, but by the person before you. Every touch becomes a question, every reaction an answer, and every silence an invitation. This kind of engagement creates a sense of mystery even within familiarity. It keeps the spark alive because it honors the idea that your partner is not fully known, that there is always more to discover. Desire is not sustained by repetition but by renewal, and curiosity is the key to that renewal. Responsiveness is its expression, the living proof that you are attentive and emotionally tuned in. When she feels your curiosity, when she senses that you want to know her, not just please her, she feels desired on a deeper level. It tells her that she is not just a participant but an inspiration, that her reactions guide your rhythm, and her pleasure shapes your intention. In that space, desire becomes more than physical, it becomes emotional artistry, something remembered not for what happened, but for how alive it made both of you feel. Attunement transforms a moment into memory because it is the invisible thread that connects two people beyond the surface of physical touch. To be attuned is to be fully aware of your partner's emotional and physical state, to move in sync not because you planned it, but because you feel it. It is the art of emotional listening, of perceiving the small shifts in her body language, tone, and breathing, and responding in ways that make her feel understood without needing to speak. Attunement turns intimacy into a shared language where both partners communicate through energy, presence, and sensitivity. When you are attuned, every gesture carries meaning, and every response builds trust. It's not about control but about connection, not about leading or following but about flowing together. Being attuned requires patience and awareness. It means slowing down enough to notice the subtle signals that might otherwise go unnoticed, the way her breath catches, the tension that builds and releases, the rhythm that feels natural to her. It means letting go of expectation and allowing intuition to guide the moment. Attunement is not about guessing what she wants, it's about feeling what she's expressing and meeting her there with care and responsiveness. This mutual awareness creates safety, and in safety, vulnerability blossoms. When she senses that you're tuned into her, She doesn't need to perform or protect, she can simply be. That freedom is what makes an experience unforgettable, because it gives her permission to express her full range of emotion and sensation. Attunement also deepens emotional intimacy by fostering empathy. You are no longer focused solely on your pleasure or your moves, but on the shared experience unfolding between you. In that space, you begin to understand that pleasure is not linear but circular, something that grows when both people feel equally engaged. The smallest gestures, a touch, a whisper, a pause, become magnified when they're given with awareness. It's through this depth of connection that a fleeting encounter becomes something meaningful and lasting. When two people are attuned, they create a rhythm that feels effortless. It's as if time slows, and every sense becomes heightened. The act itself fades into the background, and what remains is the emotion, the feeling of being seen, heard, and understood without words. This is why attunement transforms a moment into memory. It reaches the emotional core where experiences are stored, where the mind and body remember not the mechanics but the meaning. It's what makes her recall the way you made her feel long after the moment ends, because she didn't just experience pleasure, she experienced connection. The essence of being seen and felt beyond the act itself lies in the human need for recognition that goes deeper than physical attraction. Every person wants to be desired, but more than that, they want to be understood. They want to feel that their emotions, vulnerabilities, and essence are noticed and valued. In moments of intimacy, when defenses are lowered and authenticity emerges, this recognition becomes even more powerful. Being seen beyond the act means that your partner doesn't just experience your presence physically but feels that you are emotionally connected to who they truly are. It's not about admiring a body, it's about honoring a being. When a woman feels seen in this way, she experiences intimacy as something sacred, because it acknowledges her humanity as much as her sensuality. To see someone in this sense requires depth of attention. It is not enough to look at her, you must witness her. You must be aware of the subtle shifts in her expression, the quiet moments of surrender, and the emotions that ripple beneath the surface. This awareness demands stillness, curiosity, and empathy. It means letting go of distractions, assumptions, and goals, and being fully present in the shared experience. When she feels that your focus is entirely on her, not just her body but her emotional energy, she feels safe enough to open herself completely. This safety is what transforms an encounter into connection, because it allows her to exist fully without pretense or fear of judgment. Being felt beyond the act means that your presence lingers even after the physical moment ends. It's the warmth of your touch, the tone of your voice, the sincerity in your gaze that stays with her. It's how you make her feel emotionally held, not just physically desired. When she feels that your attention is not transactional but genuine, she experiences a sense of being cherished rather than used. This depth of awareness leaves an imprint that memory cannot erase. She may forget the details of what was said or done, but she will never forget how it felt to be truly known in your presence. Such experiences reach beyond pleasure into emotional truth. They awaken something within her that reminds her of her worth, her beauty, and her power to connect. To be seen and felt beyond the act itself is to offer her a reflection of her most authentic self. It's an intimacy that transcends desire and becomes remembrance, an invisible mark left not on her body but on her soul, where connection becomes a story she carries quietly, long after the moment has passed.